Hi everyone, this is Leah, and I'm going to be talking about public opinion regarding the seriousness of climate change and why research about this topic is so important. So to start, I'm just going to rattle off a few of the many implications of changes to our global climate due to a higher presence of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So this entails changes to water resources and food availability, an increased prevalence of extreme storm events, ocean acidification, sea level rise, and many more. So, for those groups who are interested in mitigating these impacts and who believe that human behavior is a cause of climate change, it is essential to understand how the public perceives the problem of global warming. Because human caused problems do require human involvement in their solutions. So, the research question that I tackled is what factors determine an individual's views on the seriousness of global warming? So, the specific question that survey respondents were asked in the survey that Professor Borick had conducted is, in your view, is global warming a very serious problem, somewhat serious, not too serious, or not a problem? So I have four hypotheses for demographic characteristics that will make someone more or less likely to answer this question in a particular way. So my first hypothesis is that racial identity influences views of the seriousness of global warming, with racial minorities being more likely to view global warming as a serious problem than white Americans are. So there are several existing surveys and pieces of literature that support this, showing that minority groups were actually more likely to support various national climate policies than white Americans, even when they were told that it would entail personal costs. And another reason to sort of rationalize this hypothesis is the sentiment that racial minorities are actually more vulnerable to the impacts of global warming and therefore might be more concerned about the problem as a whole. My second hypothesis is that feelings about the Bible will influence views of global warming as well, with those who view the text as the literal word of God and believe that it should be taken literally, word for word, will be more likely to not see global warming as a problem than those who don't believe the Bible should be taken literally. So, part of the reasoning behind this is came up from a couple of readings, but basically, obviously, not every person who subscribes to a particular religion is going to have the same opinion on every topic. But there definitely exists a mentality that, or a particular interpretation of the Bible that, God is in control and global warming is part of His plan, and we shouldn't really interfere. So instead of looking at, you know, your membership to a particular religion, I decided to look specifically at how people view the Bible and think that it should be interpreted. My third hypothesis is that political party affiliation will impact views on the seriousness of global warming, with Democrats being more likely to view it as a serious problem, while Republicans will be more likely to view it as not a problem than Democrats. So this rationale is heavily backed up by, just for example, a Pew Research Center study from 2016, which found that there is a large political divide between Democrats and Republicans in regard to expectations for how likely various consequences of global warming are to occur. And this followed the same pattern that I am hypothesizing, with Democrats believing that it was, or stating that it was more likely for these to occur than Republicans, who more frequently answered that these particular consequences were not at all likely to occur. And finally, my fourth hypothesis is that gender identity will also have an influence on responses to how serious the problem of global warming is. And I hypothesize that females will be more likely to view global warming as a serious problem than those who identify as male. So the World Health Organization in 2014 had a really great report looking at how the social factor of gender mediates the effect of climate change on human health. And they really showed that due to existing gender roles, women are more likely to face severe consequences during climate disasters. And I believe this is why women will be more concerned about climate change. So diving into the findings for hypothesis one, which looked at racial identity, you can look down below at the chart that I made in the bottom right-hand corner, which shows that my hypothesis proved true. So you can see that white Caucasian respondents were only 49% of this group said that the problem with global warming was very serious. And that chunk, that red bar portion of the bar, was significantly larger for all of the other racial identities that I looked at. And also, just a disclaimer about this quickly, for all of my hypotheses and the 4 demographic characteristics I looked at, I did hide from the calculation several categories of respondents for each of those questions. And my reasoning for doing that was just removing groups that had a really low response rate. So for this question, I didn't include the Native American responses that were a part of this survey question, just because there was such a low number of individuals who marked that category. So moving forward, that happened for each question, but just putting that out there now. So using the chi-square analysis, we could say with 99% confidence that this relationship does exist and is not due to chance. So racial identity did influence the way people answered this question, and white respondents were more likely to say that global warming was not a problem and less likely to say it was a very serious problem. For hypothesis 2, again, the chi-square test showed that we can see this relationship is true with greater than 99% confidence. Those who said that the Bible is the actual word of God and is to be taken literally were significantly less likely to say that global warming is a serious problem than those who said the Bible is a book of, an ancient book of fables and legends recorded by men. So it does seem, based on this statistical analysis, that opinions of how the Bible should be read, whether literally or with more interpretation, did directly relate to differing views on the seriousness of global warming. Oops. For hypothesis 3, which looked at political party affiliation, the difference is quite staggering, but maybe not surprising. So Democrats were 86% of Democrats said that global warming is a very serious problem, while only 19% of Republicans answered in the same way. And the Independent Party was pretty intermediate in this question, which was interesting. So again, we can say with greater than 99% confidence that the relationship between political party and views on the seriousness of global warming does exist and is not due to chance. And finally, for hypothesis 4, diving into gender identity, again, then we were able to reject the null hypothesis and see that the relationship is real and not due to chance, although it was slightly less statistically significant than the other 3 hypotheses. But we did find that 57% of female respondents said that global warming is very serious, compared to 49% of male respondents. And, on the flip side, 15% of males said it was not a problem versus 7% of females who said it was not a problem. So why is this important? Whenever you're trying to, put out messaging, it's really important to understand the public opinion regarding that topic of the population that's going to be affected or targeted. And that's very true in the case of climate change and climate activism and climate action. So the findings of my particular analysis I thought were pretty interesting, because I think there's a false notion out there that wealthy white people are the only population that has a real interest in climate change. But clearly the results of this investigation sort of dispel that notion, as we found that racial minorities were actually expressed more concern about climate change. So I think this offers a really important opportunity to engage vulnerable communities in climate action and the conversation around climate change and what we can, move forward and do about it. So that sort of applied to both hypothesis 1 and 4 for looking at, females and racial minorities, both of which are populations that are more likely to face severe negative consequences of, you know, upcoming implications of climate change. And finally, also, I thought the presence of the political divide is really important to acknowledge because, you know, the policy realm is, and the political landscape is really the place where a lot of the work to address climate change has to occur. So the fact that there's such a large divide there really stresses the importance of finding a successful and skillful way to frame the climate change debate so that we're able to really engage both sides of that divide and achieve some collaboration. So thank you so much for listening, and congratulations on finishing out the summer term, everyone. Sad I didn't meet you all in person, but it was still good to work with you. Bye.